of promoting a culture of peace and security, superpowers promote hegemony, exploitation, racism, hypocrisy, double standards, and the invasion of third world countries with such extraordinary brutality that even Satan sometimes thinks that he is not as evil as human beings can be today. I do not want to be a pessimist, but it will take a miracle to achieve sustainable development globally, as long as the powers are hell-bent on not only dictating and imposing their will and ideology and ungodly philosophy on the third world with impunity, but getting richer at the expense of others. The scramble for global hegemony has unleashed a very dangerous arms race that has never been seen in human history. Today, we hear of inventions of robotic war machines, super smart weapons of mass destruction, military uniforms that make soldiers invisible, cluster munitions, stealth aircrafts, stealth missiles, mothers and fathers of all bombs, supersized aircraft carriers, super nuclear submarines, etc., and etc. All these developments mean one thing and one thing only: to kill as many people as possible and within the shortest possible time. The latest generation of nuclear war weapons, missiles, drones, are a threat to sustainable development globally. For us to achieve sustainable development globally, therefore, first there must be the political and moral will on the side of all world leaders to abandon the path of warmongering and tread the path of global peace and justice, so that instead of military uniforms that make soldiers invisible to the enemy, on which millions of dollars have been wasted on research, we will have clothing that will make human beings invisible to malaria-carrying mosquitoes, as we all know that malaria is indeed the #1 killer disease in most parts of the developing world. Instead of super bombs, mothers and fathers of all bombs, we want smart and antiviral vaccines, the mothers and fathers of all vaccines, of course, that would make humans resistant or immune to diseases like asthma, cancer, Parkinson's, TB, AIDS, diabetes, etc. Instead of all-terrain deadly military tanks, we want super smart all-terrain agricultural tractors, planters, weeders and seeders, and combine harvesters. Instead of deadly nuclear bombs and artillery, we want more sophisticated surgical equipment that can make surgery less painful and less time-consuming. Instead of superpower air carriers, we want ultra-modern hospital ships with a global reach that can give medical treatment to all parts of the world at minimal cost. Instead of deadly biological or chemical weapons, we want super seeds or crops that would feed every living soul on earth with nutritious food, thereby eradicating hunger and poverty. Instead of spending trillions of dollars on missile shields, spend those trillions on anti-hurricane, anti-tornado, bushfires, and flood shields. After all, the best and most effective missile shield is not expensive, as it costs a few $1,000s. That is a complete return to Allah. Make peace with everybody, adopt the art of absolute tolerance, move away from the current war posture and defense and war economy to a social and peace-loving economy. Abandon your crazy illusions of world domination and tread the path of peace and love and tolerance for all of humanity, respecting the fact that there is an Allah-given right to cultural, spiritual, demographic, and religious diversity that is sacred and inviolable. Then, and indeed only then, can any power be secured or shielded from missiles. All the above cost little or nothing other than abandoning our hateful, evil, and ungodly intentions towards the rest of humanity that we can consider different, inferior to us, and that they should therefore be dictated to live and exist according to our will. We should promote social, cultural, and scientific and agricultural alliances across the globe, not military alliances. We should spend more money on positive change to human livelihood across the globe, rather than spending billions of dollars on dangerous military misadventures such as regime change with their attendant catastrophic consequences to not only human and economies of the countries targeted, but to the whole regions, that is regional economies and livelihoods, thereby entrenching endemic poverty and destitution. Come on, we human beings are supposed to be more civilized and God-fearing than that. We want millions of tons of food for the poor and destitute and wretched of the world, and not bombs, tanks, airstrikes, and stealth killer drones. For there to be sustainable development, therefore, that will be global and beneficial to humanity, the West must change from its current objective and pose of world domination through confrontation and hatred, to global tolerance, love, peace, and guaranteed security for all of the human race. They must accept the reality of humanity, and that is, indeed, our differences and diversity. Let our diversity, therefore, be a uniting and loving factor in our relationships and not a divisive, hateful, and racist factor. The West has been responsible for all that is destructive, divisive, and ungodly to the human race for centuries since the creation of man. From slavery, colonialism, exploitation, racism, and two deadly wars, I sincerely pray to the Almighty Allah to prevent the West from unleashing a third world war. Such a likely eventuality, of course, would turn this world into a living hell for all living creatures, more so the human race. Mr. Chairman, we the young people of the human race pay the highest price, usually, for all the evil excesses of the older generation of humanity. We are the soldiers that tend to fight the wars, especially as child soldiers. We fight the wars blindly for the interests of a few evil-hearted creatures in leadership positions, and after the wars, face the daunting realities of unemployment, of poverty, and destitution. We are the ones that are being trafficked as slaves, worked to death, and even grow weak and old. And when we grow weak and old, we realize that somebody or some people somewhere have gotten rich at our own expense. Mr. Chairman, the summit should come up with concrete steps to stop wars, exploitation, racism, and death technologies. We must abandon double standards in the international justice systems as well, and institutions that are created to give hope, inspiration, and protection to all of humanity. Unfortunately, these are today being hijacked by the superpowers for ulterior motives. For example, third world petty war criminals are being hunted down by the international justice institutions at the behest, of course, of the West, whereas Western serial war criminals that kill hundreds of thousands of people in the third world are being praised as heroes and guarantors of freedom. These war criminals have invaded countries thousands of kilometers away from their own countries, killed hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, and children in the name of regime change. Regime change, which is the preserved right of only Western powers today to invade, occupy, and plunder the resources of third world countries, replaces the term dark continent, which was the pretext the same West used centuries ago to come and colonize the third world for centuries with devastating consequences. This time around, they'll not have it the way they want it, as we are all ready to defend our sovereignty, our natural resources, and our human dignity and freedom to the last human being, no matter how powerful and well-equipped they may be. Sustainable development can only come when the sovereignty, the dignity, and freedom of all humanity, and especially those of the third world people, are guaranteed. On this note, therefore, I call on all young people of the world to unite against exploitation, war, as well as hate. After all, our rights can only be realized when we unite and take on the warmongering older generations to bring about permanent global peace, collective security, where human life and dignity is guaranteed. We must unite as from today, irrespective of race, religion, creed, or color, or nationality. Only a peaceful and stable world can guarantee us of a bright future as humanity. All the Occupy movements should be turned into a global anti-war, anti-exploitation, and anti-racism and peaceful movements. In a nutshell, we should have a global human solidarity movement of young people and peace-loving older generation members, of course, of the human family. If we all come together as humanity with the fear of Allah in our hearts, bonded, of course, by love, tolerance, and mutual respect, we can assure global peace and security. And then, and only then, can sustainable development on a global scale be achieved, guaranteeing a bright, peaceful, and prosperous future for our children and generations of humanity yet unborn. I thank you all for your attention.
di leen dalal fii ci Gambia Radio and Television Services tey nag panel li koy dafa am xew-xew bu mag bu war a am fii Gambia on the 29th of June si weer wiñ nekk nii bu amee ñaar fukki fan ak ñeent